Good evening, and welcome back to Silent Souls. Tonight, we dive into the Appalachian Mountains with 6 true disturbing Appalachian cabin horror stories from eyewitnesses, hikers, and locals' tales, preserved in diaries and police reports that will chill you to the bone. If you're new to Silent Souls, subscribe and hit the bell icon for daily true horror. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Let's cross into the Appalachian wilderness, where secrets unravel and terror lurks. The door at the end of the hall was locked, and something on the other side scratched like it wanted out. I was staying in a cabin deep in Virginia's Blue Ridge Mountains, near Floyd, a place I'd found on a rental site when I needed to get the hell out of Richmond. Work had been a nightmare data entry at an insurance office, staring at spreadsheets until my eyes burned. Coworkers who gossiped like it was their job. I was 25, single, and tired of my apartment's thin walls and my neighbor's endless TV blaring. The cabin promised quiet, a chance to breathe, maybe read a book without someone's drama leaking through the walls. I'd booked it for a week, figuring I'd hike, cook, and just exist for a bit. Packed a duffel with clothes, a flashlight, a multi-tool with a knife, some groceries, and a couple of paperbacks. Told my sister Emily where I'd be, left a note with the cabin's address, and drove out on a Friday morning, my Honda Civic rattling up the mountain roads like it was as done with city life as I was. The Blue Ridge is something else, hills that roll like waves, forests so thick they seem to swallow the sky. The cabin was off a gravel road, a good 30 minutes from Floyd, tucked in a valley where the trees pressed close, their branches scraping the roof like fingers. It was small, log built, with a tin roof and a porch that creaked under my boots. The air smelled of pine and damp earth, with a faint tongue of wood smoke, like someone had a fire going miles away. I found the key under a rock, as the owner's email had said, and let myself in. The place was cozy wood floors, a stone fireplace, a kitchen with a gas stove, and a narrow hallway leading to a bedroom and a bathroom. At the end of the hall was a door, heavy and old, with a rusted padlock that looked like it hadn't been touched in years. I figured it was a closet or storage, maybe a basement, and didn't think much of it. The cabin felt like a hideout, exactly what I needed. I unpacked, made coffee, and sat on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the trees, the forest humming with crickets and frogs. That first night, I built a fire, the flames snapping in the hearth, casting shadows that danced across the log walls. I cooked a pot of chili, the smell filling the cabin, and read a thriller on the couch, a lumpy thing with faded cushions. The forest outside was alive, leaves rustling, an owl hooting somewhere deep in the trees. I felt good, like I'd left Richmond's noise far behind. Went to bed early, the bedroom small but warm, the quilt heavy and smelling faintly of cedar. Fell asleep to the sound of the cabin settling, the wood creaking like it was stretching its bones. Around 2 a.m. I woke to scratching slow, deliberate, like nails dragging across wood. It was coming from the hallway, from that locked door at the end. I sat up, heart jumping, straining to hear. The scratching stopped and started again, louder, like something was testing the door, trying to get through. I grabbed my flashlight and multi-tool, flipping out the knife, my hands shaky. The bedroom was dark, the moonlight barely touching the window. I crept to the door, cracked it open, and shone the beam down the hall. The locked door was there, padlock glinting, the wood unmarked but old, splintered at the edges. The scratching paused, then came again, slower, like it knew I was listening. "Hello?" I called, my voice thin, echoing in the quiet. No answer, just the scratching, steady now, like a rhythm. My stomach twisted, that gut-deep feeling you get when you're not alone. I checked the cabin, flashlight sweeping every corner. The living room was empty, the fire low, embers glowing red. The kitchen was still, my chili pot on the stove, the windows locked tight. The front door was bolted, No signs of anyone trying to get in. The scratching kept going, faint but persistent, like it was waiting for me to do something. I stood in the hall, staring at the locked door, my knife gripped tight. Part of me wanted to grab the poker and break the padlock, see what was behind it. Part of me wanted to run, grab my keys, and drive back to Richmond. I didn't do either. I went back to the bedroom, pushed the dresser against the door, and sat on the bed, flashlight on, knife in hand, listening. The scratching stopped around 3 a.m., a silence heavier than before, like the cabin was holding its breath. Morning came, the sun filtering through the trees, a forest alive again with birds and squirrels. I checked the hall. The locked door looked the same. No scratches, no marks. The padlock rusted but intact. I tried the handle, just to be sure. It didn't budge. I told myself it was mice, or maybe the wind rattling something in there, but it didn't feel right. I spent the day hiking, trying to shake the unease, following a trail that wound through pines and past a creek, its water clear and cold. Found some odd things, tree bark carved with symbols, not letters, but shapes, like spirals and jagged lines, too deliberate to be random. Near the trail's end, I saw a pile of small bones, maybe rabbits, arranged in a circle with a flat stone in the center. It felt like a marker, like someone or something had left it for me to find. My skin prickled, but I didn't touch it, just turned back to the cabin. That night, I built a bigger fire, hoping the light would keep the scratching away. It didn't. Around midnight, it started again, louder, faster, like whatever was behind the door was angry. I stayed in the living room, knife out, flashlight pointed at the hall. The scratching turned to thumping, heavy and slow, like something big was hitting the door from the other side. I yelled, "Stop it!" My voice cracking, but the thumping kept going, steady, like it was mocking me. Then I heard a whisper, faint, coming through the door. Not words, just sounds, like a breathy hiss, rising and falling. My heart was pounding, my hands sweaty on the knife. I checked the front door, the windows, everything locked tight, no way in. The thumping stopped, but the whisper grew louder, like it was seeping through the walls, filling the cabin. I didn't sleep, just sat by the fire, watching the hall. Around 4 a.m., the air got cold, not like the night before, but sharp, like a freezer. My breath fogged, the fire flickering like it was struggling. The whisper turned into a low hum, vibrating in my chest, coming from everywhere now, the walls, the floor, the ceiling. I grabbed my keys, ready to bolt, but the front door wouldn't open. The bolt slid, the handle turned, but it was like something was holding it shut. I yanked harder, my hand slipping, panic clawing at me. The hum stopped, and the door swung open on its own, the forest outside dark and still. I didn't wait, grabbed my bag, left half my stuff, and ran to my car, the gravel crunching under my boots. The cabin watched me, its windows like eyes, the locked door's hum still echoing in my head. Drove back to Richmond, my hands shaking on the wheel, checking my rearview mirror for something I couldn't name. Didn't tell Emily what happened, just said the cabin was creepy, and I cut the trip short. Looked up the place later, found a forum post about a cabin near Floyd, stories of a locked door that shouldn't be opened, whispers that knew your name. I haven't gone back to the Blue Ridge, haven't rented another cabin. Sometimes at night, I hear scratching, faint, like it's coming from the other side of my apartment door. I keep my knife close, check the locks, but I know it's still out there, waiting. The mirror in the cabin's bedroom showed a figure standing behind me, but when I turned, no one was there. I'd come to a rental in Virginia's Appalachian Mountains, just outside Shenandoah National Park, looking for a quiet weekend to escape my life in Richmond. I was 26, a freelance photographer scraping by on wedding gigs and headshots. My days spent editing photos in a cramped apartment with a leaky faucet and neighbors who partied all night. The constant hustle chasing clients, fixing gear, dodging late fees, was wearing me thin. I needed a break, somewhere to clear my head, maybe shoot some nature shots for my portfolio. Found the cabin on a rental site, cheap for a long weekend, tucked deep in the woods with no Wi-Fi, no distractions. Sounded perfect. Packed a backpack with clothes, my camera, a flashlight, a pocket knife, and some groceries: canned soup, bread, a couple of protein bars. Told my friend Alex I'd be off-grid, left a note with the cabin's address, and drove out Friday morning, my old Jeep bouncing along the mountain roads. The Shenandoah area is stunning rolling hills, forests thick with oaks and pines, air crisp with the scent of damp earth and wildflowers. The cabin was off a dirt track, a good 30 minutes from the nearest town, nestled in a clearing where the trees pressed close, their branches scraping the roof like fingers. It was small, log-built, with a tin roof and a porch overlooking a rocky stream. The air smelled of moss and whetstone, with a faint metallic tang, like rain was brewing. Found the key under a loose plank, let myself in. The place was cozy, but old creaky wood floors, a stone fireplace, a kitchen with a gas stove, and a bedroom with a sagging bed and a faded quilt. A full-length mirror stood in the bedroom corner, its frame carved with vines, the glass cloudy but intact. No TV, no radio, just the hum of the forest outside, crickets and frogs singing in the dusk. It felt like a refuge, a place to forget Richmond's noise. Spent the first evening unpacking, starting a fire, the flames crackling and casting shadows across the log walls. Cooked soup, sat on the couch a lumpy thing with worn cushions, and scrolled through my camera, planning shots for the weekend. The forest was alive, leaves rustling, an owl hooting deep in the trees. It was peaceful, the kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're breathing deeper. Took a few test shots of the cabin's interior, the mirror catching the firelight, reflecting the room in a hazy glow. Went to bed early, the quilt heavy, the bedroom smelling faintly of dust and cedar. Fell asleep to the stream's soft murmur, the cabin creaking like it was settling in. Woke up around 2 a.m. Heart racing, the mirror's reflection first thing I saw. A figure stood behind me in the glass, tall and thin, its outline blurry, like a shadow smudged with charcoal. I spun around, grabbing my flashlight, the beam cutting through the dark. The room was empty, just the bed, the dresser, the quilt tangled at my feet. The mirror showed only me now, my face pale, eyes wide. My stomach knotted, that primal fear you get when you're not alone. "Who's there?" I called, my voice shaky, echoing in the quiet. No answer, just silence, heavy and thick. I shone the flashlight at the mirror, the glass reflecting the beam. But the figure flickered back, just for a second, standing closer now, its head tilted like it was studying me. My heart froze, my hand slipping to my knife. Checked the cabin, flashlight sweeping every corner. The living room was empty, the fire low, embers glowing red. The kitchen was still, my soup pot on the stove, windows locked tight. The front door was bolted, no signs of tampering. But the mirror in the bedroom showed the figure again, now in the doorway, its shape sharper, like it was stepping closer. I backed away, knife out, flashlight trembling. The figure didn't move, just stood there in the glass, its edges shifting, like it was made of smoke. I yelled, "Get out!" But my voice sounded small, and the figure tilted its head again, like it was curious. My mind raced, maybe a reflection trick, or my tired eyes playing games. But it was too real, too deliberate, and the air was cold, my breath fogging in the room. I didn't go back to bed, just sat on the couch, flashlight on, knife gripped tight, watching the bedroom door. The figure stayed in the mirror. I could see it from the living room, flickering in the firelight, Sometimes closer, sometimes farther, like it was pacing. Around 3 a.m. I heard a soft tap, like a finger on glass, coming from the bedroom. My heart was in my throat, my hands sweaty on the knife. I crept to the doorway, shone the flashlight at the mirror. The figure was there, pressed against the glass now, its outline sharp, no face, just a dark shape with long limbs. The tapping grew, spreading to the windows, the walls, like something was circling the cabin. I slammed the bedroom door, pushed the couch against it, and sat by the fire, trying to stay calm. The tapping kept going, relentless, like it was looking for a way in. At dawn, the forest woke up, birds chirping, the air warming. The mirror was empty, reflecting just the room, the glass cloudy, but still. I checked the cabin, no marks, no signs, everything in place. The mirror looked normal, no figure, but my reflection seemed off, like my eyes weren't mine. I tried to work, setting up my camera for outdoor shots, but my hands shook, my mind stuck on the figure. Went for a hike to clear my head, following a trail behind the cabin, winding through pines to a rocky overlook. Found scratches on the trees, deep and spiraled, like someone had clawed them, and a pile of small bones, maybe rabbits, arranged in a circle with a flat stone in the center. It felt like a warning, like the forest was watching. Didn't touch it, just headed back, the unease heavy in my chest. That night, I covered the mirror with a blanket, built a fire, sat with my knife, waiting. The tapping started at midnight, louder, coming from the bedroom, then the windows, then the walls, like it was everywhere. The blanket slipped off the mirror. I heard it fall. A soft thud, and the figure was back, closer, its shape filling the glass. A whisper came, faint. Maya, my name, drawn out like a hiss. My blood went cold. I hadn't told anyone but Alex. The whispers grew, overlapping, my name chanted like a ritual, the air icy, my breath fogging, the fire flickering low. I yelled, "Leave me alone." But the tapping turned to pounding, the windows rattling like they'd break. I ran to the front door, but it wouldn't open. The bolt stuck like something was holding it. Didn't sleep, just sat, knife ready, flashlight sweeping the room. Around 4 a.m., the noises stopped, the air warmed, the mirror silent. At first light, I checked it. The blanket was on the floor, the glass empty but smudged, like fingers had touched it. Packed up fast, left my camera, half my food, and bolted, the tapping starting one last time as I ran to my Jeep. Drove back to Richmond, checking my mirror for the figure. Didn't tell Alex the whole story, just said the cabin was creepy. Looked up the place later, found whispers online about a Shenandoah cabin with a mirror that showed things, tied to a hiker who never left. Haven't gone back, haven't rented another cabin. Sometimes at night, I see a shadow in my apartment mirror, flickering like it's waiting. Keep my knife close, check the locks, but I know it's still out there, watching. The chair in the cabin's corner rocked slowly, creaking like someone was sitting in it, but it was empty. I'd come to a rental in North Carolina's Blue Ridge Mountains, just outside Boone, desperate for a break from my life in Raleigh. I was 29, a paralegal buried in case files, my days spent chasing deadlines for lawyers who barely knew my name. The stress was eating me alive late nights, coffee-stained papers, a landlord who kept hiking the rent on my tiny apartment. I needed to get away, somewhere quiet to think, maybe journal to sort out the mess in my head. Found the cabin on a rental app, cheap for a long weekend, tucked deep in the woods with no Wi-Fi, no neighbors. Sounded like a lifeline. Packed a duffel with clothes, a notebook, a flashlight, a pocket knife, and some groceries, canned chili, bread, a few apples. Told my coworker, Jun, I'd be off-grid, left a note with the cabin's address, and drove out Friday morning, my old Nissan bouncing along the mountain roads. The Blue Ridge is breathtaking ragged peaks, Forests thick with pines and maples, air sharp with the scent of damp earth and wildflowers. The cabin was off a dirt track, a good 30 minutes from Boone, nestled in a hollow where the trees seemed to lean in, their branches brushing the roof like curious hands. It was small, log-built, with a tin roof and a porch overlooking a narrow stream. The air smelled of moss and cedar, with a faint sourness, like something decaying nearby. Found the key under a loose plank, let myself in. The place was rustic creaky wood floors, a stone fireplace, a kitchen with a propane stove, and a bedroom with a sagging bed covered in a quilt that smelled of dust. No TV, no radio, just the hum of the forest outside, crickets and frogs weaving a nighttime chorus. It felt like a hideaway, a place to disappear. Spent the first day settling in, unpacking my journal, starting a fire in the hearth. The flames crackled, casting shadows that danced across the log walls, making the nuts look like eyes. Cooked chili, sat on the couch, a worn thing with springs poking through, and wrote about work. Rawly, the way everything felt like it was closing in. The forest was alive, leaves rustling, an owl hooting deep in the trees. It was peaceful, the kind of quiet that lets you breathe deeper. Went to bed early, the quilt heavy, the bedroom smelling faintly of mildew. Fell asleep to the stream's soft gurgle, the cabin creaking like it was settling in. Woke up around 1 me, heart pounding, the rocking chair in the corner, creaking like someone was shifting their weight. The room was dark, the fire down to embers, the air colder than it should have been for June. I grabbed my flashlight, the beam shaky, and pointed it at the chair, an old wooden thing with a faded cushion tucked in the bedroom corner. It was still rocking, slow and steady, but empty, no one there. My stomach twisted, that gut-deep fear you get when something's wrong. I called out, "Hello?" My voice thin, swallowed by the silence. The chair stopped, sudden, like it had been caught. I sat up, knife in hand, flashlight sweeping the room. Nothing, just the bed, the dresser, the quilt bunched at my feet. The air was heavy, like it was pressing down, and the forest outside was quiet. No crickets, no owls. Got up, checked the cabin, flashlight cutting through the dark. The living room was empty, the fire low, shadows pooling in the corners. The kitchen was still, my chili pot on the stove, windows locked tight. The front door was bolted, no signs of anyone. But the chair in the bedroom started creaking again as I walked back, faster now, like it was impatient. I shone the light on it empty, still rocking, the motion slowing as I watched. My heart was racing, my hands sweaty on the knife. I told myself it was the wind or the floor settling, but there was no breeze, and the creak was too rhythmic, too alive. I pushed the chair against the wall, wedging it so it couldn't move. The creaking stopped, but the silence was worse, like the cabin was holding its breath. I didn't sleep, just sat on the bed, flashlight on, knife ready, listening. Around 3 a.m, heard something new, a sigh, soft but clear, like someone exhaling right behind me. I spun around, the beam catching nothing but the wall. The sigh came again, from the chair's corner, then from the ceiling, like it was moving. "Who's there?" I yelled, my voice cracking. No answer, just the sigh, growing louder, joined by a faint tapping, like fingers on wood, circling the room. My skin crawled, my mind flashing to the old stories Jeanne told. Appalachian tales of cabins with guests who never left. I checked the chair, still wedged, unmoving, but the tapping kept going, now on the windows, then the walls, like something was looking for a way in. At dawn, the forest woke up, birds chirping, the air warming. The chair was still, the cabin quiet, like nothing had happened. I checked every room, no marks, no signs, everything in place. The chair was where I'd left it, pushed against the wall, the cushion untouched. I tried to journal, but my hands shook, the words jumbled. Went for a hike to clear my head, following a trail behind the cabin, winding through pines to a rocky overlook. The forest was too quiet in spots. No squirrels, no wind. Found scratches on a tree, deep and jagged, forming a rough spiral, and nearby, a pile of small bones, maybe birds, arranged in a circle with a flat stone in the center. It felt wrong, like a warning. Didn't touch it, just headed back, the unease sticking to me like damp clothes. That night, I moved the couch against the bedroom door, built a fire, sat with my knife, waiting. The chair started creaking again, right at midnight, slow at first, then faster, like it was angry. I shone my flashlight empty, rocking on its own, the cushion sinking like someone was sitting. The sighs came back, louder, overlapping, like a crowd whispering my name. Ellie, drawn out and cold. My heart froze. I hadn't told anyone but John, and she was hours away. The tapping grew, pounding now, on the walls, the windows, the door, like something was trying to break through. The air turned icy, my breath fogging, the fire flickering low despite the logs. I yelled, "Stop it!" But the sounds just got louder, the chair rocking so hard it scraped the floor. Didn't sleep, just waited, knife gripped tight. Around 4 a.m, the noises stopped, the air warmed, the chair stilled. At first light, I packed up, left my journal, half my food, and ran to my car, the chair creaking one last time as I bolted. Drove back to Raleigh, checking my mirror for something following. Didn't tell Jeanne the whole story, just said the cabin was creepy. Looked up the place later, found whispers online about a boom cabin with a rocking chair that moved, tied to a settler who never left. Haven't gone back, haven't rented another cabin. Sometimes, at night, I hear a creak, faint, like a chair rocking in my apartment. Keep my knife close, check the locks, but I know it's still out there, waiting. The table in the cabin's kitchen was carved with symbols that weren't there when I went to bed. Jagged lines and spirals, glinting in the morning light like they'd been scratched overnight. I'd come to a rental in West Virginia's Monongahela National Forest, near Seneca Rocks, trying to outrun the chaos of my life in Charleston. I was 24, a line cook at a diner, my days filled with grease burns, shouted orders, and a boss who thought yelling was management. The job paid the bills barely, but the stress was a weight I couldn't shake. My tiny apartment smelling like fire oil, no matter how much I cleaned. I needed a reset, somewhere quiet to think, maybe strum my guitar to calm my nerves. Found the cabin on a rental app, dirt cheap for a weekend, deep in the woods with no Wi-Fi, no distractions. Sounded like a dream. Packed a duffel with clothes, my guitar, a flashlight, a pocket knife, and some groceries, canned soup, bread, a few beers. Told my coworker, Mike, I'd be off-grid, left a note with the cabin's address, and drove out Friday afternoon, my old Dodge Dart rattling up the mountain roads. The Monongahela is wild, jagged ridges, forests thick with pines and hemlocks, air sharp with the scent of damp earth and moss. The cabin was off a dirt track, a good 40 minutes from Seneca Rocks, tucked in a clearing where the trees stood like sentinels, their branches scraping the roof. It was small, log-built, with a tin roof and a porch overlooking a rocky slope. The air smelled of pine and wet stone, with a faint bitterness, like something rotting under the leaves. Found the key under a loose board, let myself in. The place was simple, creaky wood floors, a stone fireplace, a kitchen with a propane stove, and a bedroom with a lumpy bed and a faded quilt. The kitchen had a wooden table, old and scarred, but no carvings, just smooth, warm wood. No TV, no radio, just the hum of the forest outside, crickets and frogs weaving a nighttime song. It felt like a hideout, a place to forget Charleston's noise. Spent the first evening unpacking, starting a fire, the flames crackling and casting shadows across the log walls. Heated up soup, sat at the table, and strummed my guitar, picking out a few chords to ease my mind. The forest was alive, leaves rustling, a coyote yipping somewhere distant. It was peaceful, the kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're breathing for the first time in months. Went to bed early, the quilt heavy, the bedroom smelling faintly of dust and cedar. Fell asleep to the wind sighing through the trees, my guitar leaning against the wall, the cabin creaking softly. Woke up around 2 a.m., heart pounding, a scraping sound echoing from the kitchen, like a knife dragging across wood. The room was dark, the fire down to embers, the air colder than it should have been for summer. I grabbed my flashlight, the beam shaky, and crept to the door. The scraping was slow, deliberate, coming from the kitchen table, like someone was carving into it. My stomach nodded, that primal fear you get when you know you're not alone. "Who's there?" I called, my voice thin, swallowed by the quiet. The scraping stopped, sudden, like it had heard me. I shone the flashlight into the kitchen empty, the table still, no one there. But the air was heavy, like it was watching, and the forest outside was silent. No crickets, no wind. Checked the cabin doors locked, windows shut, no signs of anyone. The table looked normal in the dark, no marks I could see, but the scraping started again as I stood there, faint, like it was mocking me. I gripped my knife, flashlight sweeping the room, catching nothing but shadows. The sound moved, circling the table, then fading, like it had sunk into the wood. My heart was racing, my mind scrambling for answers, maybe mice, or the table settling weirdly. But it wasn't that. It was too rhythmic, too intentional. I backed into the bedroom, shut the door, pushed a chair under the knob, and sat on the bed, flashlight on, knife ready. The scraping came again, softer, from the walls now, like it was spreading. Didn't sleep, just listened, jumping at every creak, every rustle outside. Morning came, the sun filtering through the trees, the forest waking with birds and squirrels. I checked the kitchen. The table was covered in carvings, deep spirals and jagged lines, like someone had spent hours with a blade. They weren't there last night. I'd have noticed. My skin crawled, my hands shaky as I traced the marks. Rough and fresh, the wood splintered. The cabin felt normal otherwise, fireplace cold, floors clean, no signs of a break-in. I tried to focus, made coffee, strummed my guitar, but my eyes kept drifting to the table. Went for a hike to clear my head, following a trail behind the cabin, winding through pines to a rocky stream. Found scratches on the trees, deep and spiraled, like the ones on the table, and a pile of small bones, maybe squirrels arranged in a circle with a flat stone in the center. It felt like a warning, like the forest was marking me. That night, I moved the table against the wall, hoping it'd stop whatever was happening. Built a fire, sat with my knife, waiting. The scraping started at midnight, louder, coming from the table despite it being wedged tight. I shone my flashlight new carvings, fresh lines cutting into the wood, forming my name, Caleb, in jagged scratches. My heart froze. I hadn't told anyone but Mike, and he was hours away. The scraping grew, joined by a low hum, like a voice trying to speak, vibrating through the floor. The air turned icy, my breath fogging, the fire flickering low. I yelled, "Stop it!" But the hum became a whisper. My name repeated, circling the cabin like the scraping. The windows rattled, like something was pressing against them, but nothing was there. Didn't sleep, just sat, knife gripped tight, flashlight sweeping the room. Around 4 a.m, the noises stopped, the air warmed, the table silent. At dawn, I checked at more carvings, my name repeated in spirals, the wood splintered like it had been clawed. Packed up fast, left my guitar, half my food, and ran to my car, the scraping starting one last time as I bolted. Drove back to Charleston, checking my mirror for something following. Didn't tell Mike the whole story. Just said the cabin was creepy. Looked up the place later. Found whispers online about a cabin near Seneca Rocks with a table that carved itself, tied to a woodcutter who left his mark. Haven't gone back. Haven't rented another cabin. Sometimes at night, I hear scraping, faint, like a knife on wood in my apartment. Keep my knife close, check the locks, but I know it's still out there, carving, waiting. The walls of the cabin whispered my name in the dead of night, like they knew I was alone. I was staying in a rental deep in Tennessee's Great Smoky Mountains, near a tiny town called Cosby, trying to escape the grind of grad school in Knoxville. I was 23, drowning in folklore research old Appalachian tales of ghosts and curses that were starting to blur together. My thesis was eating me alive. Late nights in the library, coffee going cold, my eyes burning from staring at dusty books. I needed a break, a place to breathe, maybe write without the hum of campus life. A friend tipped me off about a cheap cabin online, tucked so far in the woods it didn't even have Wi-Fi. Perfect. No distractions, just me, my laptop, and the quiet. I booked it for a long weekend, packed a bag with clothes, a notebook, a flashlight, a pocket knife my dad swore by, and some groceries, canned soup, bread, a few apples. Told my advisor I'd be off-grid, left a note for my roommate, and drove out Friday morning, my Subaru coughing up the mountain roads. The Smokies are magic hills that stretch like green waves, air thick with pine and earth, the kind of place that makes you forget the world exists. The cabin was off a dirt road, a good half-hour from Cosby, hidden in a pocket of forest where the trees leaned close, their branches brushing the roof like they wanted to get in. It was small, log-built, with a tin roof and a porch that sagged under my boots. The air smelled of damp moss and faint wood smoke, like a fire had burned nearby days ago. I parked, grabbed my stuff, and found the key in a lockbox by the door. Inside was cozy, but old creaky hardwood floors, a stone fireplace, a kitchen with a gas stove that hissed when I lit it. The bedroom had a quilt-covered bed, heavy and musty, like it'd been there forever. No TV, no internet, just a radio that spat static. It felt like stepping into one of my thesis stories, and I loved it. I spent the first day settling in, unpacking my books, making coffee, and poking around the property. The backyard was a small clearing, maybe 30 feet across, with a fire pit ringed by stones and a path vanishing into the woods. Found a pile of firewood under a tarp, dry but webbed with spider silk, like it hadn't been touched in ages. The listing mentioned dogs, but they weren't around, probably with a neighbor, I figured. The quiet was perfect, wrapping me up like a blanket. That evening, I built a fire in the fireplace, the logs crackling, shadows flickering across the log walls. Sat on the couch, a lumpy thing with faded plaid, and typed notes for my thesis, jotting down bits about Smoky Mountain legends, shadow figures, haunted hollers, cabins that held grudges. The forest outside hummed crickets, owls, the faint rustle of leaves. It was exactly what I needed, like the world had hit pause. Went to bed early, the quilt warm, the bedroom smelling of cedar and dust. Fell asleep to the fire's dying pops, the cabin creaking softly. Around 2 a.m., I woke up, heart racing, the whispers still echoing in my head. "Hannah," they'd said, clear as a bell, coming from the walls themselves. I lay there, frozen, straining to hear it again. The room was dark, the fire just embers, the air colder than it should have been for spring. The whisper came again. "Hannah," softer, like it was testing me, coming from the wall by the headboard. I grabbed my flashlight, the beam shaky, and swept it across the room. Nothing, just the bed, the dresser, the quilt tangled at my feet. The walls were solid logs, no vents, no cracks, nothing to explain it. My stomach nodded, that primal tug you get when you know something's wrong. I called out, "Who's there?" My voice thin, swallowed by the quiet. No answer, just the whisper. Hannah. Again, like it was answering. Got up, knife in hand, flashlight cutting through the dark. Checked the living room empty, the fire low, shadows pooling in the corners. The kitchen was still, my coffee mug on the counter, the windows locked tight. The front door was bolted, no signs of anyone. The whispers stopped, but the silence was heavier, like the cabin was waiting. I went back to bed, flashlight on, knife under my pillow, my eyes glued to the wall. Didn't sleep, just listened, jumping at every creak, every rustle outside. Thought about the stories I'd been reading, tales of cabins that trapped voices, spirits that knew your name. I'd always thought they were just stories, but now they felt too real. Morning came, the sun slipping through the trees, the forest alive with birds again. The cabin looked normal, walls quiet, fireplace cold, no signs of anything weird. I checked every inch, looking for loose boards, hidden speakers, anything. Nothing. The logs were solid, the air warm again. I tried to work, typing notes by the fire, but my mind kept circling back to the whispers. Decided to hike, hoping fresh air would clear my head. Followed the path behind the cabin, winding through pines so thick they blocked the sun. Found a stream, water sparkling over rocks, and followed it for a mile, sketching ferns for my notebook. The forest was too quiet, no squirrels, no birds, just the stream's gurgle. Then I saw its scratches on a tree, deep and jagged, like claw marks, forming a rough circle around a clearing. In the middle was a pile of bones, small, maybe birds, arranged in a spiral with a flat stone in the center. My heart sank. It wasn't random. It was deliberate, like a sign I wasn't supposed to find. Back at the cabin, I couldn't shake the unease. The air felt thick, the walls too close, like they were watching. That night, I built a bigger fire, the flames roaring, hoping it'd keep the whispers at bay. It didn't. Around midnight, they started again. Hannah, coming from every wall now, like the cabin was alive. I stayed on the couch, knife out, flashlight sweeping the room. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, a chorus of voices, some soft, some sharp, like they were arguing over me. Then came a knock, slow, heavy, from the front door. I froze, my beam locked on the door, expecting it to burst open. Nothing moved, but the knocks kept coming, deliberate, like someone was counting. I checked the windows, the bolt, everything secure, no one outside. The whispers turned to a hum, vibrating through the floor, making my teeth ache. I didn't sleep, just sat there, flashlight on, knife gripped tight. Around 4 a.m, the air got cold, my breath fogging, the fire flickering like it was scared. The hum grew louder, forming words, not just my name now, but fragments. Stay, listen, like the cabin wanted me to hear it. I grabbed my keys, ready to run, but the front door wouldn't budge. The bolt stuck like something was holding it. I yanked, panic rising, until it finally gave, swinging open to the dark forest. I bolted, leaving my laptop, my notes, half my stuff. Got to my car, hands shaking, and peeled out, the gravel spitting under my tires. The cabin's windows watched me go, dark and empty, the whispers still ringing in my ears. Drove back to Knoxville, checking my rearview mirror, expecting something to follow. Didn't tell my roommate what happened, just said the cabin was creepy. Looked up the place later, found whispers of stories, online cabins in the Smokies that held voices, walls that spoke to those who stayed too long. I haven't gone back, haven't rented another cabin. Sometimes at night, I hear my name, faint, like it's coming from the walls of my apartment. I keep my knife close, check the locks, but I know it's still out there, waiting for me to come back. The lantern on the cabin porch flickered like it was trying to warn me, its light stuttering in the dark before I even stepped inside. I'd driven out to Pisgah National Forest in North Carolina, near Brevard, looking for a quiet weekend to escape my life in Charlotte. I was 28, stuck in a call center job, answering phones for angry customers who thought I could magically fix their internet. The headset, the cubicle, the fluorescent lights, it was sucking the life out of me. I'd found the cabin on a rental site. A cheap deal for a place buried deep in the woods. No Wi-Fi, no neighbors, just trees and silence. Sounded like a dream, a chance to unplug, maybe sketch a little since I'd been neglecting my art. Packed a backpack with clothes, a sketch pad, some charcoal pencils, a flashlight, a pocket knife, and enough food for a few days. Canned beans, bread, a couple of beers. Told my coworker Sam I'd be off-grid, left a note with the cabin's coordinates, and headed out Friday morning, my old Toyota Corolla rattling up the mountain roads. Pisgah is wild, dense forests, waterfalls, ridges that feel like they're guarding something ancient. The cabin was off a gravel track, a good 40 minutes from Brevard, hidden in a pocket of pines and hemlocks, so thick they blocked the sky. It was small, wood-sided, with a tin roof and a porch that groaned under my weight. A single lantern hung by the door, its flame dancing in a glass case, casting shadows that moved like ghosts. The air smelled of damp leaves and sap, with a faint metallic tang, like rain was coming. Found the key under a loose board, as the owner's email said, and let myself in. The cabin was simple but warm, creaky pine floors, a stone fireplace, a kitchen with a propane stove, and a bedroom with a lumpy mattress and a faded quilt. No TV, no radio, just quiet, broken by the hum of insects outside. It felt like a hideout, a place to disappear for a bit. I spent the first day settling in, unpacking my sketchpad, starting a fire in the hearth. The flames crackled, throwing light across the log walls, making the knots in the wood look like eyes. I sketched the view from the porch-twisted trees, a faint trail leading into the forest, the lantern's glow cutting through the dusk. The forest was alive, crickets chirping, a whippoorwill calling somewhere deep in the trees. I heated up some beans, cracked a beer, and sat by the fire, feeling the stress of Charlotte start to fade. This was what I needed: no phones, no complaints, just me in the woods. Went to bed early, the quilt heavy, the bedroom smelling of dust and pine. Fell asleep to the lantern's faint flicker through the window, the forest humming like it was singing me to sleep. Woke up around 1, me, heart pounding, the lantern's light gone. The cabin was dark, the fire just embers, the air colder than it should have been for June. I grabbed my flashlight, the beam cutting through the blackness, and checked the window. The lantern was out, not just dim but dead, like someone had snuffed it. I stepped onto the porch, my boots loud on the creaky boards, and relit the lantern, the flame flaring then settling. But it flickered again fast, like it was fighting to stay lit. The forest was quiet, no crickets, no birds, just silence, thick and heavy, like it was pressing down. Then I heard it a rustle, soft but deliberate, coming from the trees beyond the clearing. Not like an animal scurrying, but slow, like someone dragging their feet through leaves. My stomach nodded, my hand slipping to my knife. "Who's out there?" I called, my voice shaking. No answer, just the rustle, circling the cabin, getting closer. I went back inside, locked the door, and checked every window bolted tight. The lantern's flicker was visible through the glass, stuttering like a heartbeat. I built up the fire, hoping the light would keep whatever it was away, and sat on the couch, flashlight in one hand, knife in the other. The rustling stopped, but then came a new sound, a tap, sharp and clear, on the porch roof, like a stone hitting tin. Tap, pause, tap, pause. My heart was racing now, my eyes locked on the ceiling. I told myself it was branches, or maybe squirrels, but it was too steady, too intentional. I shone my flashlight at the window, catching the lantern's glow, still flickering, like it was trying to signal something. The tapping moved, circling the cabin, sometimes on the roof, sometimes on the walls, like whatever was out there was testing the place. Around 3 the tapping stopped, and the lantern went out again, plunging the porch into darkness. I crept to the window, flashlight off, peering through the glass. The clearing was empty, the trees still, but I felt its eyes on me, heavy and cold, like something was staring from the forest. I relit the lantern, my hands shaking, and the flame flared, then flickered again, weaker now. That's when I saw it, a shadow, tall and thin, standing at the edge of the clearing, just beyond the lantern's light. It didn't move, didn't sway, just stood there, its outline sharp against the trees. My breath caught, my knife gripped tight. "Get out of here," I yelled, banging on the window. The shadow didn't flinch, just tilted its head like it was curious. Then it stepped back, melting into the trees, and the lantern flared bright, steady for the first time. I didn't sleep, just sat by the fire, watching the windows, listening for the tapping. The forest stayed quiet, but the air felt wrong, like it was holding something back. At dawn, the birds started up, hesitant, like they were checking if it was safe. I stepped outside, the lantern still burning, its flame gone now. The clearing looked normal: fire pit, trail, trees, but I found something near the porch steps. A pile of twigs, arranged in a tight spiral, with a smooth stone in the center. It wasn't there yesterday, I'd have noticed. My stomach dropped, my mind flashing to the shadow, the tapping, the flickering lantern. I kicked the twigs apart, grabbed my sketch pad, and started packing. Found scratches on the porch railing, deep and jagged, like claws had dug in. They weren't there when I arrived, I swear. I hiked out that morning, skipping breakfast, my pack bouncing as I followed the trail back to my car. The forest felt different, the trees too close, like they were leaning in. Saw more scratches on the path trees marked with spirals, too high for an animal, too deliberate for a person. Didn't stop to look, just kept moving, my heart pounding. Got to my car, threw my stuff in, and peeled out, the gravel spitting under my tires. Drove back to Charlotte, checking my rearview mirror, expecting to see that shadow standing in the road. Didn't tell Sam what happened, just said the cabin was creepy. Looked up the place later, found a few forum posts about a lantern in Pisgah that wouldn't stay lit, tied to stories of a figure that watched from the trees. I haven't gone back, haven't rented another cabin. Sometimes at night, I see a flicker in my apartment window, like a lantern struggling to stay lit. Keep my knife close, check the locks, but I know it's still out there, waiting.